the $700 million contract was supposed to be the beginning of a dynasty. Instead, it is becoming the center of the biggest internal crisis the Los Angeles Dodgers have faced in years. Because right now, behind the clean uniforms, the carefully worded press releases, and the perfectly managed media appearances, something is breaking down inside the most expensive roster ever assembled in the history of professional baseball. And the crack that is splitting this organization open is not coming from an injury. It is not coming from a losing streak. It is not coming from outside pressure. It is coming from within. It is coming from the contract. And it is coming from a decision that Dave Roberts is now seriously considering that has sent shockwaves through the Dodgers clubhouse, rattled the confidence of their most important player, and forced the entire organization to confront a question nobody in Los Angeles was prepared to answer this early in the year. Is Shohei Ohtani being treated like the $700 million superstar he was promised he would be? Or is he being treated like just another piece on a lineup card that a manager can move around whenever the analytics say something different looks better on paper? The answer to that question is tearing the Dodgers apart right now. And before this spring training is over, every single person connected to this organization is going to have to pick a side. To truly understand the magnitude of what is happening inside the Dodgers organization right now, you have to go back to the moment this all began. December 2023. Shohei Ohtani stands in front of the cameras in Los Angeles and announces the most staggering contract in the history of professional sports. $700 million. 10 years. A commitment so massive, so unprecedented, that it didn't just make headlines in baseball. It made headlines across the entire sporting world. But here is what most people missed in the celebration of that moment. Ohtani did not choose the Dodgers because of the money. Every major team in baseball was prepared to offer him a life-changing contract. Money was never the deciding factor. Ohtani chose the Dodgers because of a vision, because of conversations he had with ownership and team leadership about the kind of organization he was joining, about the level of respect he would receive, about the structure that would be built around him to allow him to perform at the absolute peak of his extraordinary abilities. He was promised a home, not just a roster spot. He was promised a role that reflected his status as the most unique and gifted player on the planet. And for one magical season, everything aligned exactly as promised. Ohtani performed at a supernatural level. The Dodgers won the World Series. The vision became reality. The entire baseball world looked at Los Angeles and saw exactly what a $700 million investment was supposed to produce. But now, just one championship later, sources say Ohtani is beginning to question whether the promises made in those early conversations are still being honored. And the reason for that doubt has a name. It is called the lineup restructuring plan. And Dave Roberts is the one holding it. The details of what Roberts has been internally proposing have now fully leaked out of the Dodgers camp. And the reaction has been exactly as explosive as anyone familiar with Ohtani's competitive mentality would have predicted. Roberts wants to move Ohtani from the leadoff position down to the number 2 spot in the batting order. In his place at the top of the lineup, Roberts envisions Kyle Tucker, the newly signed 4-year $240 million outfielder whose on-base ability and early count discipline make him an analytically attractive option to set the table at the front of the order. On paper, the argument is structured and logical. Tucker's ability to get on base consistently gives Ohtani immediate high-leverage opportunities with a runner already in scoring position. The theory is that a two-hole Ohtani, batting with Tucker already on base, actually creates more run-scoring danger than an Ohtani leading off against a pitcher who hasn't been tested yet. That is the argument. And if you are a front office analyst staring at a spreadsheet at midnight, it probably looks compelling. But spreadsheets do not suit up. Spreadsheets do not feel the weight of a $700 million contract. Spreadsheets do not understand what it means to a competitor of Ohtani's caliber to be told that the role he was built around, the role he has owned and dominated, is being handed to someone else. And that is precisely where the fallout begins. Sources with direct knowledge of the internal situation say Ohtani's reaction to the proposal was not quiet or diplomatic. He made his position known immediately and without any ambiguity. And the core of his argument was not about ego. It was about effectiveness. It was about the science of how he performs at his absolute best. Ohtani reportedly told members of the coaching staff directly, The leadoff position is where I control the game before it has even started. When I walk to that plate in the first inning with nobody on base, with the pitcher facing me cold for the first time, that is when I have every possible advantage. I can see the spin. I can track the velocity. I can force a pitch count before any of my teammates have even stepped in the box. And if I make contact in that first at-bat, if I put the ball in play with power, I have already shifted the entire psychological balance of the game. That is worth more than any lineup arrangement you can draw up in an office. That argument landed hard. Because it is not an emotional argument. It is a baseball argument. And it is one that is very difficult to dismiss when it comes from a player who has spent his entire career proving that he understands the game at a level most people cannot even comprehend. But Roberts did not back down either. And that is when the fallout became something much bigger than a simple disagreement between a manager and a player. Because this is not just about a batting order. Sources say the dispute over Ohtani's position in the lineup has ripped open a much deeper wound inside the Dodgers organization. A wound that has been quietly developing since the offseason. A wound connected directly to the question of how this organization views its relationship with the players who delivered its championship. Multiple people inside the Dodgers camp have described a growing sense of tension between the analytical side of the front office and the veteran core of the roster. On one side, there is a group of decision-makers who believe the Dodgers' championship last season validates their data-driven approach and gives them the confidence to keep pushing boundaries, to keep restructuring, to keep optimizing even when the on-field results are already exceptional. On the other side, there are players like Ohtani, Mookie Betts, and Freddie Freeman who look at last season's championship and see something different. They see proof that what they built together works. They see evidence that their approach, their structure, their collective identity as an offensive unit is not something that needs to be fixed or redesigned. They see a championship and ask a simple question. Why are you trying to change what just won everything? One veteran player, speaking anonymously, put it with devastating simplicity. When you win the World Series and the first thing that happens in the next spring training is your best player gets moved in the lineup without a real conversation, without genuine buy-in, you start to wonder whether the organization actually trusts what you built or whether they just got lucky and now they're going back to their own agenda. That word, lucky, it is the most dangerous word in any championship clubhouse. Because if players start to believe the front office views last season as a fortunate outcome rather than a direct result of what they created together, the entire foundation of trust between the roster and the organization begins to crumble. Dave Roberts is now caught directly in the middle of this firestorm. He is a manager who has won with this group. He understands these players. He has been through battles with them that most managers never experience in an entire career. And nobody who knows Roberts believes he made this proposal carelessly or without genuinely believing it gives the Dodgers a better chance to win. But Roberts is also operating under pressure from above. The front office has made significant investments this offseason. Kyle Tucker's $240 million contract is not just a financial commitment. It is a statement about the direction of this roster. And there is an expectation within the organization that Tucker's addition will be reflected in a meaningful way in the team structure, not just on the depth chart. Roberts told reporters this week, "Every decision I make in spring training is about finding the best combination for this group to succeed. I have the utmost respect for every player in this clubhouse and their contributions. We are still in the evaluation phase and nothing is permanent." Those words were chosen carefully. But sources say behind closed doors, the conversations have been far less measured. Roberts knows that if he moves Ohtani and it creates a visible disconnect in the clubhouse that carries into the regular season, the consequences will fall on him. Not on the front office. Not on the analysts. On him. And he knows it. Meanwhile, the contract itself has now become a central point of tension in a way that nobody inside the Dodgers organization anticipated. When Ohtani signed for $700 million, there was an implicit understanding on both sides. The Dodgers were not just buying a player. They were buying a franchise centerpiece. They were buying the right to build their entire identity around the most gifted baseball player alive. They were buying the credibility that comes with having Shohei Ohtani at the top of their lineup, at the top of their brand, at the top of everything they present to the world as an organization. And Ohtani, for his part, signed that contract understanding that his role would reflect the magnitude of that commitment. that the decisions made around him would be made with the awareness that he is not a component to be optimized. He is the foundation everything else is built upon. Moving him in the lineup, even by one spot, even with the best analytical intentions in the world, sends a message that cuts against that understanding. It says, in a language every competitive athlete understands immediately, that the structure is more important than the player. That the model is more important than the man. That $700 million buys your talent, but it does not guarantee your voice will be heard when the decisions that affect you most are being made. One prominent agent with deep connections across the league said it bluntly. You do not sign a player to the largest contract in sports history and then treat him like a variable in an equation. That is not how you protect a $700 million investment. That is how you destroy one. The 2026 Dodgers were supposed to enter the season as the undisputed favorites to repeat as World Series champions. They still have the talent to do exactly that. But talent has never been enough on its own. Not in baseball. Not in any sport that demands sustained effort, genuine trust, and complete psychological commitment across 162 regular season games and a playoff run that tests every player on a roster to their absolute limit. Right now, the Dodgers have a $700 million superstar who is questioning whether his organization still sees him the way they promised they would. They have a manager standing at the most consequential crossroads of his career. They have a front office caught between its analytical convictions and the human reality of what it takes to keep a championship clubhouse unified and hungry. And they have a lineup card sitting on a table in Glendale, Arizona that has not yet been finalized. That lineup card is just paper. It weighs almost nothing. But right now, for the Los Angeles Dodgers, it carries the weight of everything. A dynasty, promise, a $700 million gamble on the greatest player in baseball. And the question of whether the people running this organization are wise enough to understand what they are risking before it is too late. The fallout has already begun. Where it ends is the story that will define the entire 2026 season.